Electronic music evolves in cycles. Experimental sounds gain mainstream traction and eventually lose their edge as audiences adapt. Yet these sounds never truly disappear. Instead, they resurface as new artists rediscover and reinvent them with modern tools, keeping electronic music in constant transformation to return in a new form. So, is the future of sound just a remix of the past? Electronic music has always evolved in cycles, where once groundbreaking technologies fade into the background only to be rediscovered and redefined decades later. To understand why electronic music moves in phases, we need to look back at its history. In the 1960s and 70s, modular synthesizers like Moog, Buchla, and EMS Synthi dominated experimental and electronic music. These systems were large, complex, and expensive, limiting access to only a few pioneering musicians. By the 1980s and 90s, analog synthesizers were pushed aside by the rise of digital and FM synthesizers like the Yamaha DX7 and Roland D50, which offered new, cleaner, and more precise sounds. But in the 2000s and 2010s, analog synth made a huge comeback. Roland, Moog, modular synth, and analog drum machines returned to the forefront. And thanks to technological breakthroughs, a Eureka boom also emerged and a renewed interest in hands-on, unpredictable sound design followed. Let's have a closer look into digital formats and a possible wavetable renaissance. In the 1980s, synths like the PPG Wave and Waldorf microwave introduced wavetable synthesis, allowing digital waveforms to shape sound ways analog synth couldn't. And today, wavetable synthesis is more relevant than ever. But why do these old technologies keep coming back? Because sound design is about evolution, not replacement. Therefore, the question arises at this point, if we've already explored all major forms of synthesis, what's next? Electronic music evolves by rediscovering old ideas and transforming them with new technology. Wavetable synthesis and modular synthesis are perfect examples. Today, synths like Serum or perhaps even Ableton's Wavetable have brought the concept into more modern music production, combining classic digital textures with cutting-edge possibilities. When I got the package and opened it and saw the Behringer Wave, I thought to myself, this has been around before. Is it interesting to revive this era in sound? But let's check it out ourselves. Thanks to the different wavetables, we are able to create different sounds and actually characters. So let's dive into a few of them. Of course, Wavetable is known to create a little bit more cold sounds like these. Or these. Very metallic kind of a lot of times, but thanks to the wider spectrum of wavetables, you are able to create also warmer and rich sounds. So this is actually pretty lush in my opinion. As mentioned, it's always about the context you put a sound to. So of course a sound from the 80s done in the 80s sounds like something from the 80s. But if we perhaps put the things into a modern twist, use effects and VSTs to modulate it and to affect it in a more modern, perhaps interesting way, then of course we're able to tweak the sounds in a different direction. So here is a really interesting patch in my opinion, and on its own it's sounding already very artificial, very futuristic kind of. But if we now turn on the effects with a modern sound design effect chain to bring it into a different context, it starts to sound very different. So to me, this definitely doesn't sound like the 80s. It's more like very weird and very futuristic. But it's about the things you combine to get the results actually. And things that sound actually kind of basic, not boring, but not really inspiring, just like a basic thing like a tom, can become really interesting with effects. Let's take a step back and only use the synthesizer without additional sound design effects. But I think it's interesting to use its sound in a different context. So in this case, I want to create a little, let's say, house jam. And I'm going to send MIDI notes into the synth, just some plain chords. Let's check out a possible lead sound to our chords to create a little track. And in this case, I think this is really nice, because this again is cold, and with the cold and warm chords we can create some very interesting contrast to give each other more character and space to shine. And here's our final track. The future of sound design isn't about inventing entirely new synthesis methods. It's about discovering innovative ways to merge and reshape existing ones. Perhaps the sound of the future isn't defined by something completely new, but how we evolve and reimagine what already exists. Electronic music has always been in motion, cycling through eras. What was once groundbreaking eventually becomes nostalgic until it resurfaces in a new form.